I came home early, heard my girlfriend laughing about her affair, and left without a word. I'm a 27-year-old software developer, and until recently, I thought I had a solid 3-year relationship with my now ex-girlfriend, Kay. We lived together in a small downtown apartment, and while my job kept me busy with long hours at a startup, we were comfortable. Kay worked part-time as a teacher's assistant while finishing her degree. Life wasn't perfect, we had arguments like any couple, but I never had a reason to question her loyalty. That changed last Tuesday. I'd managed to get off work early for once and decided to surprise Kay with her favorite takeout and plans for a movie night. I wanted to show her I appreciated her, especially after a stressful few months for both of us. But when I got to our apartment, the door was slightly ajar, which immediately felt off. I stepped inside quietly and heard voices, Kay's and Amanda's. At first, I thought it might be a friend, but then I heard her say, "Yeah, he has no idea. He's so busy with work, it's easy to get away with it. He thinks I'm just stressed about school." I froze. She kept talking, laughing about how clueless I was and how she had me wrapped around her finger. The guy chuckled, adding, "As long as it works for us, who cares?" My heart dropped. My girlfriend wasn't just cheating on me, she was mocking me behind my back. The betrayal was clear as day. I wanted to burst into the room, demand answers, and throw them both out, but something stopped me. It hit me that confronting them wouldn't erase the fact that the person I loved had completely disrespected me. So I left. I quietly backed out, closed the door, and walked away. My hands were shaking as I drove off, feeling like my entire world had crumbled. I ended up at a friend's place, where I crashed on his couch, staring at the ceiling and trying to process what had just happened. The fallout. The next morning, I blocked Kay on everything: phone, social media, email. I didn't tell her why. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions and realize I was gone. Soon, the texts and calls started rolling in. At first, she sounded confused, then apologetic, then desperate. "Please, let's talk. I can explain," she wrote in one message. "It's not what you think." But I knew what I'd heard. There was nothing to misunderstand. She had betrayed me, humiliated me, and laughed about it. Over the next few days, mutual friends started reaching out, saying Kay was freaking out and begging to talk to me. I didn't tell them the full story, it was too humiliating. Then I learned something even worse: the guy in my apartment wasn't just anyone. He was one of my coworkers. I'd never suspected him. Sure, Kay had mentioned him a few times, even suggested we invite him out for drinks, but I never thought anything of it. It all made sense now, the way she talked about him, the times she'd been distant. To top it off, I found out he had a girlfriend, too. They'd both been cheating, and it felt like some sick game to them. The confrontation. About a week later, Kay tracked me down at my friend's place. She was crying, pounding on the door, begging to see me. My friend asked if I wanted him to send her away, but I decided to let her in. She looked like a wreck: red, swollen eyes, shaky hands. She launched into a rambling apology, saying it was a mistake, that the guy meant nothing, and that she still loved me. But even as she spoke, it was clear she was trying to manipulate the situation. She wouldn't fully admit to the affair at first, saying things like, "It wasn't what it looked like," and, "I never meant to hurt you." Finally, I cut her off. "I heard everything," I said. "I was there that night." Her face went pale. She tried to protest, but I opened the door and told her, "We're done." She broke down in tears, sobbing in the hallway, swearing it would never happen again. But I was finished. I walked out of her life without looking back. The aftermath. Kay stopped trying to contact me after that. Maybe she realized there was no coming back from what she'd done. But the coworker? That was a different story. I decided not to leave my job. Why should I uproot my life because of their selfishness? Instead, I went to HR with everything I knew. It wasn't just about me, it was about the toxic behavior he brought into the workplace. The fallout was swift. Word spread quickly, and his girlfriend, who also worked in the building, found out before HR could act. By the end of the week, he was fired. His reputation was in tatters, and I stayed focused on my work, knowing I'd taken the right steps. Moving on. Surprisingly, it didn't take as long as I thought to start healing. At first, the betrayal consumed me, but within weeks, the fog began to lift. I realized I'd been ignoring red flags in our relationship for a long time: her late nights, the excuses, the emotional distance. I'd put her on a pedestal, blinded by the idea of who I thought she was, rather than seeing the truth. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt, it did. Trusting someone again will take time. But I've come to terms with what happened and learned a lot about my own worth. Now, I focus on myself and the people who genuinely care about me. Kay and my coworker are out of my life, and I've let go of the anger. I'm not the same person I was before that night, but I'm stronger, smarter, and ready for whatever comes next. Story 2. My mom stole my inheritance to save my brother, but that was the last straw. At 28, I've spent my entire life watching my mom prioritize my older brother, Jake, over everything, including me. The favoritism was there even before my dad passed away in a car accident when I was 12 and Jake was 16, but after Dad's death, it became overwhelming. While I was left to grieve alone, Mom poured all her energy into comforting Jake, repeatedly telling me I needed to be strong for him. From then on, I became responsible for cooking, cleaning, and managing the house, while Jake was treated like he needed constant care. The favoritism wasn't new. When I was 6, Jake pushed me off a swing, breaking my arm, but Mom blamed me for not sharing. He regularly stole money from my piggy bank, and Mom excused it, saying he needed it more. When he destroyed my science project because he lost a competition, she made me apologize and bought him a video game to make him feel better. By high school, Jake started skipping classes, disrespecting teachers, and getting into fights. Each time, Mom made excuses, claiming he was struggling with Dad's death. When Jake was caught selling cigarettes at school, Mom moved him to a different school, saying the old one wasn't challenging enough. Meanwhile, I worked hard in school, joined clubs, and held part-time jobs, but Mom never attended my events. She missed my honor roll ceremony because Jake had detention and skipped my debate competition to help him with his homework. My accomplishments were always overshadowed by his troubles. At 17, Jake began drinking. By 18, he crashed Mom's car while drunk. She took out a loan to hire a lawyer and reduce his charges. A few months later, after another DUI, she refinanced the house to pay his legal fees. By 25, when he lost his license, she became his personal chauffeur, sacrificing her job to drive him everywhere. When I suggested he take public transportation, she dismissed it as unsafe and insisted family helps each other. I worked my way through college with scholarships and a part-time job at a bakery owned by Mrs. Chan, who became like a second mother to me. Mrs. Chan even helped me develop a business plan for my dream bakery. My dad's mom, Grandma, was my biggest supporter, regularly visiting me at the bakery and encouraging me to follow my dreams. When Grandma passed away last year, she left me $50,000 specifically to help me open my bakery. However, 3 months after her death, I noticed the money hadn't been transferred. I contacted her lawyer, only to find out that Mom had already collected the inheritance, claiming she'd handle it since I was too busy. I confronted Mom, and she broke down, admitting she had given $45,000 of my inheritance to Jake. She claimed he needed it to get his license back and start a trucking business. She insisted I could start small with the remaining $5,000 because many businesses start that way. The betrayal was devastating. That evening, Jake stopped by, acting entitled and dismissive, claiming Grandma always favored me and that I shouldn't complain. That was the breaking point. I told both Mom and Jake I was done. When I brought up how Grandma had warned Mom about enabling Jake, Mom cried, calling me cruel, while Jake sneered, accusing me of being jealous because Mom loved him more. I blocked them both on social media and cut off contact. The harassment escalates. I thought cutting ties would bring peace, but things quickly spiraled. Mom and Jake began showing up at my workplace. Initially, they waited in the parking lot during my lunch breaks, but soon they started arriving before work. Jake stood by my car, yelling at me, while Mom cried and begged me to talk to her. The situation became so disruptive that my coworkers noticed. My supervisor eventually pulled me aside, asking if I needed help, which was humiliating. Things escalated when Jake tried to follow me into the office, yelling so loudly that people on the second floor could hear him. Security intervened, banning them from the property, but Mom wouldn't give up. She started sending emails from different accounts, pleading with me to reconcile. She even emailed my work address, causing trouble with HR, who warned me it could jeopardize my job. Meanwhile, Mom's relatives joined in, with Uncle Pete posting on Facebook, calling me a heartless daughter who was turning her back on family. The truth about Jake. Everything changed when I ran into Jake's ex-girlfriend, Sarah, at the grocery store. She laughed when I mentioned Jake's supposed trucking business and revealed that Jake had been gambling for over a year, accumulating over $40,000 in debt to dangerous people. Sarah showed me months of text messages where Jake bragged about convincing Mom to give him my inheritance to pay off his debts. He mocked me as stupid for believing the trucking story and even called Grandma dumb for leaving the money to me instead of him. Jake had also been scamming others in the community, borrowing money from anyone he could. He took $5,000 from our elderly neighbor, Mr. Wilson, claiming it was for medical bills, and $3,000 from an old friend for a fake car repair business. Every dollar went to gambling. The confrontation. Armed with evidence from Sarah, I confronted Mom. At first, she denied everything, calling Sarah bitter and vindictive, but when I showed her the messages, she broke down. She admitted Jake had been draining her finances for months, emptying her savings, maxing out her credit cards, and pawning her jewelry. She confessed she took my inheritance because loan sharks were threatening Jake and tracking their daily movements. When I asked why she didn't sell her own house or take out a loan, she said she couldn't risk losing her home, adding that I was young and could save up for my bakery again. To make things worse, she admitted Jake had already spent the remaining $5,000 on a used car instead of getting his license back. The investigation. A week later, I received a certified letter from Grandma's lawyer. He discovered Mom had forged my signature on estate documents to access my inheritance. A handwriting expert confirmed the forgery, and the lawyer explained he was legally obligated to report it. Mom called me, frantic and tearful, begging me not to press charges. She blamed everything on Jake, claiming he had threatened to abandon her if she didn't help him. But the investigation revealed even more of Jake's schemes. Jake had scammed members of our community for years, using fake businesses to steal over $120,000. Victims included church members, elderly neighbors, and even a former teacher. Among his victims were the Petersons, an elderly couple who gave him $25,000 for a fake government contract, and Miss Thompson, a teacher who invested $15,000 in a non-existent food truck business. The fallout. Jake was eventually arrested, and the full extent of his deception came to light. Police uncovered 7 scams and multiple victims. Mom admitted she'd been covering for him for years, using her own money to pay off some victims and protect his reputation. Jake is now facing charges for fraud, and Mom is on the brink of bankruptcy. As for me, I've learned to move forward, focusing on rebuilding my life and my dream bakery. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes, even family can cross lines that can't be uncrossed. My mom's favoritism and forgery finally set me free. For as long as I can remember, my mom's actions revolved around supporting my brother, Jake, often at my expense. Her enabling behavior allowed him to avoid consequences for years, but when she stole my inheritance and forged my signature to cover for him, she crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Deciding to press charges against my mom was agonizing. She had betrayed me in the worst way, and while her lawyer tried to offer a settlement by selling her house to repay me, I refused to drop the charges. Instead of taking responsibility, she lashed out, claiming she needed her resources to defend Jake. Even after everything, she was still putting him first. The stress of the investigation took a toll on her health, and she went on medical leave from work. In desperation, she sent me emotional emails accusing me of killing her by not forgiving her. She insisted that a real daughter would let it go. When that didn't work, she involved our pastor, who called me, urging me to forgive her and warning that pursuing legal action would harm my soul. Other members of Mom's side of the family joined in, calling me heartless for taking her to court. My Uncle Pete even started a fundraiser for her legal fees, claiming I was making her homeless by refusing to forgive her. Meanwhile, Dad's side of the family supported my decision, remembering how Grandma had warned us about Mom's destructive favoritism toward Jake. They even set up a small fund to help me save for my bakery again. Mrs. Chun, my mentor from the bakery, reached out to me during this time. She offered me part-time work at her new location and promised to connect me with resources when I was ready to relaunch my business. With their support, I decided to move to a new city. I found an apartment, started a job at an accounting firm, and kept my location a secret from my family to protect myself. Mom's lawyer continued pressuring me to drop the charges, even suggesting small installment payments of $100 a month, but I stood firm. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about finally standing up for myself after years of being mistreated. Jake's trial. Jake's trial came first. In court, his web of lies unraveled as witness after witness shared how he scammed them with fake businesses and investments. People I had known my whole life testified about how he manipulated them, leaving some in financial ruin. Many expressed anger and heartbreak at being betrayed by someone they trusted. For the first time, Jake couldn't talk his way out of trouble. He sat there, avoiding my gaze, as the overwhelming evidence against him piled up. The court handed down a prison sentence, and while it was painful to see my brother face the consequences, I also felt a strange sense of relief. He could no longer escape accountability for his actions. Mom's trial. Mom's case followed soon after. She looked frail and exhausted on the stand, a shadow of the woman who had once held our family together. Her lawyer argued that her actions were those of a desperate mother trying to protect her child, but the evidence of forgery was undeniable. When it was her turn to speak, Mom turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of pleading and defiance. She claimed she did everything out of love for Jake and said she would do it again if it meant protecting him. Her refusal to take responsibility was disheartening, but I didn't waver. When the judge issued her sentence, Mom remained unrepentant. She insisted her actions were justified as a mother's duty. It was a sad end to a chapter that should have been about love and trust but was instead defined by betrayal and manipulation. Starting over. After the trials, I finally felt free in a way I never had before. The bonds of guilt, misplaced loyalty, and family obligation had broken. For years, I believed that loyalty to family meant sacrificing my happiness, but facing the truth allowed me to reclaim my life. Dad's side of the family became a source of quiet strength, encouraging me to focus on my dreams. Mrs. Chun welcomed me back to her bakery part-time, and together we worked on a new business plan for my own shop. She introduced me to potential investors, reviewed budgets, and helped me research locations. For the first time in years, the idea of my bakery felt real and attainable again. Therapy also played a critical role in my healing. I learned how years of favoritism and neglect had shaped me, driving me to overachieve in hopes of earning the love that should have been unconditional. It was liberating to finally unlearn those patterns and prioritize my own goals without feeling guilty. A fresh start. Life in my new city has been a period of quiet rebuilding. I've made friends who know me for who I am, not for the drama surrounding my family. I've started to believe that family isn't just the people you're born to, it's the people who genuinely care for you and support you. Jake's prison sentence and Mom's legal consequences have brought a sense of closure. They both tried to manipulate me until the very end, but I stood firm. This wasn't about revenge, it was about standing up for myself and reclaiming what was taken from me. Now, I'm focusing on the future. With the support of Dad's family, Mrs. Chun, and my new friends, I'm closer than ever to opening my bakery. For the first time in my life, I feel free to chase my dreams without the weight of guilt and betrayal holding me back. Story 3, AITA for not letting my sister's kids move in after she abandoned them? Okay, so this is a mess, and I need to know if I'm being a complete a-hole or not. My 32F sister Lisa, 36F, has always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, she could do no wrong. She got into trouble? It was just kids being kids. She made mistakes? Oh, Lisa is just figuring things out. Meanwhile, I got the "why can't you be more like your sister" treatment. Anyway, fast forward to now. Lisa has 3 kids, 8F, 6M, and 4M, and is married to Jason, 38M. I have no kids, but I've been saving up to buy my first home, and let me tell you, it's been a grind. I've been working 2 jobs for years, and I just finally closed on a small house last month. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I'm proud of it. So here's where the drama starts. Lisa and Jason have been having issues for a while, but a few weeks ago, Lisa decided she needed a break. Not just from Jason, but apparently from being a mom too. She packed a bag and left. Just like that. Jason is scrambling, trying to work and take care of the kids, but he works long hours, and now the kids are bouncing between my mom's house and his cousin's place. My mom calls me up last week and says, "You have the space now, so why don't you let the kids stay with you until Lisa gets her act together?" I was shocked. Like, absolutely floored. I told her, "Mom, I just moved in. I'm still unpacking. I don't even have furniture in half the rooms yet. I'm not equipped to take care of 3 kids." She started guilt-tripping me, saying, "They're family, and they need stability right now. You're just being selfish." Then she said something that really pissed me off. "Well, you don't have kids, so it's not like you have anything else to focus on." I snapped. I told her that Lisa is the selfish one here, not me. She's the one who walked out on her kids. And why should I have to put my life on hold because Lisa can't handle hers? Mom started crying and said I was being heartless. The whole family is now split. Some are on my side, saying it's unfair for me to suddenly become a caretaker, while others are calling me cold and ungrateful. Lisa, by the way, hasn't even called to check in. She's been posting Instagram pics from God knows where, looking like she's living her best life. I feel bad for the kids, I really do, but I didn't sign up to be their mom. I worked hard to get to where I am, and I don't think it's fair to just drop everything because my sister decided to bail. So, Ida?